Thank you, Yana, for a brief and very smooth introduction. The topic is a guideline for a successful job interview. So some sort of known and unknown secrets for the interview. But, I always find it very intriguing when the title says something about secrets. You definitely need to know and want to know those secrets. But I can go ahead and tell you that I believe there are no specific secrets to a successful interview, to be honest, and most of you already know everything. But my mission today, I think, is to remind you some of the facts, to give you some tips for a jumpstart in Lithuania, and show you actually that recruitment process is far from complicated, far from scary. Even though in Lithuania you can see that we have good recruiters, we have strict processes, but it is actually very easy to make a good impression. So as Jana mentioned already, my name is Solana. I'm a head of HR at Go Vilnius, agency of Vilnius, and I'm very happy to be here today. And I hope that you feel productive and you will be happy to hear some of the information that I have to tell you. So let's start. What I always like to start with is some sort of a parallel. And when I speak about the recruitment and when I think about the recruitment, I always think what could be a parallel to the process of the recruitment. And I encourage you, each one of you right now, to think about something big and important and to think that you have to sell it. You want to sell it or you have to sell it, it doesn't matter, but something that is very important to you. So if you look to the selling process, I think that your CV, and by CV, I mean your education, your job experience, your personal characteristics even, this is a product that you've developed so well through all of your life and that you want to sell. It is also very important to you, so you want to sell it to the right person. So the second step, the recruiting, is like a negotiation. You bring in your product for the seller, and you see and you negotiate how much of the product should be purchased, how would it be used, what would be the price, as well as what would be the conditions for the product. And then when you finalize the negotiation, you are in a stage of purchasing. So it means you sign a contract and confirm the purchase between you and the seller, buyer, which is the employer. So I know that all of this process is very relevant to you, especially if you are currently unemployed or new to Lithuania. However, this webinar would be so long if I would like to, speak about all of the process. So with Jana, we decided to look into the recruiting process specifically, meaning that we will look how to negotiate, how to prepare for the negotiation, and how to make sure that the purchase happens. And it means that you will be employed. So looking further, there is a joke going around in the HR industry, and I always like to use it. That says how to ace your interview. And it's very easy, only 3 steps how you should do it. The first step is let the interviewer ask you a question. So you come to the interview and listen what recruiter has to say to you. The second step is to be unable to think of anything. We all have some sort of blackouts, especially when we are nervous and especially when we are making a very important decision or answer. And the third step is to think of the perfect answer after the interview. And I believe that it happens to each one of us, and it happened to you before, and it happened to me a lot of times. And actually, even the most professional recruiters and qualified recruiters say that this happens to them as well. So that's how our brains work. It's nothing new. And if this ever happened to you, don't ever feel that you're not capable, that you're not eligible for a good job or for that position. That's just not the case. That's just our brain work, and we need to cope with that. And by coping, I mean we need to have some tips, some tricks that you can use and that you would be able to shorten that blackout that you have during the interview. So there are 3 stages that you should overcome when you are in the recruiting process. So the first stage and the first question you should find an answer to is how to prepare for the interview. And my keyword that I always use is detect. You should detect before the preparation and during the preparation. The second question that you need to find an answer to is how to act during the interview. And the keyword here is listening. Listen, and we will see why listening is so important later on. And the third stage would be what to do after the interview. And the key word, of course, is act. And as you all know, it's very easy questions and everyone knows that we need to find an answer to them. However, I will show you how to particularly do that with some of the insights from the recruiter. So let's start with the first stage that you should overcome, and it is a before stage. And as I say, when you are preparing for the interview, your role as a person, as a potential employee, is to be a detective. And what does it mean to be a detective? So first of all, you should definitely check all of the company's social media and official webpage. You should find what communication style do they use and why communication style is that important. So based on communication style that a company uses in social media and official webpage, you can determine the company's culture basically. So you can see what communication style you should choose when you come to the interview. Should it be formal, informal, personal? Should it be initiative? Or should it be engaging? Or should you be passive? As well as based on the culture and communication style, you can then identify how should I dress? So meaning, do you need a very formal attire or a simple one will go the way? As well as do I need to send a very serious CV, or do I need something fun, something unusual for the company? So being a detective starts from identifying the main things about the company. The second step would be to have a deeper analysis of the company's results, about company's achievements, about company's values, as well as strategic plans. It's one of the ways to prove that you are interested actually in that job and in a company. So as we know, when you are kind of searching for a job, you are applying for a lot of positions, a lot of companies, a lot of positions, and sometimes you even forget where you have applied. So it is very important to show the employer that you are very interested in that specific position and in that specific company, and that interest shows your motivation, your honest motivation. And while they say that recruiters are most likely to hire you if you actually feel some connection with the company, not only with the position. The third thing is you need to analyze the job description and requirements and write down the questions. So the keyword here is you need to analyze job description and requirements, not just read through. And by doing the analysis of the position and of the requirements, I can guarantee you will have many questions, because we use all different words, we use different terms for the things. So basically, when reading through, you should mark the things that you are not really sure about. And what you need to do, you need to bring those questions to your interview. Doesn't matter if it's on your phone, if it's on your computer, or if it's on the white sheet of paper. You need to bring them to the interview and show that you have an analyzing skill, that you can analyze, and that you are very interested to know. So it is quite an easy step, looks like an easy step, but to be honest, not many candidates do that. And that's how you can stand out for the crowd. Do that one extra mile and show your interest, and the recruiter will definitely notice it. The fourth step would be to have all your certificates prepared. And certificates not often are very required in the administrative positions, but you have some specific knowledge of engineering, IT, of the language, you need to prepare your certificates. And You should not bring the papers with you as a proof, but you should have some information about the issue dates, about the issuer, about the expiration dates. Have that all information on the same sheet of paper or in your telephone if the recruiter or manager asks you. So when is your certification expiring, so that they would know that you have this document that is required for the position. The second step would be to know your selling points with very specific examples. So you should know the answer to why are you suitable for the position, why you will integrate in the company, what will be the both-sided benefits of this purchase, and I mean of this hiring. You need to have all of the answers prepared, because as we know, they are kind of easy to answer, but as I mentioned before in the joke, you can experience some sort of a blackout, and it means that you probably will forget some great points about yourself, and you will not be able to sell yourself properly. So you need to have all of those answers prepared. You need to make sure that you try to answer these questions in the mirror, and then go to the recruitment with the good posture and show them that you know why you are needed in the company and why should he buy your product, and I mean your CV. And the second step, the last step, the sixth step would be to don't lie. To not lie, never ever, because as a recruiter, I know that it is very easy to check where you studied, where you worked, how long did you work there. We have all of the resources to that, and you shouldn't start with the wrong foot, as they say. So you should start with the truth, because if you start with a lie and recruiter sees that the information that is in the CV or that you have told is not a match, then it means that you have started with a lie, and it's a very bad sign, actually, and they will not be considering you as a candidate for further on. And the last step, it is very informal, but it's my personal suggestion to you. So to not be a hero, and if you feel bad, if you don't feel like you're gonna be performing well, you just need to ask to cancel and postpone. So basically, we very obviously see when the person comes to the interview sick, when the person is in a bad mood, when something is wrong, and it actually has a very big effect on your performance during your interview. So if you feel that something is not good, just ask to postpone. And every recruiter postpones the interview as much as possible, because it is very important to hear every candidate and to be able to compare them, not to hear one and choose from one. So don't be afraid to do that. I know that when you're new in the country, or you're finding or searching for a job, it is kind of hard to find the strength, but don't be a hero. That's my personal suggestion. So moving on, there is a saying that within the first 7 seconds of the meeting, people will have a solid impression. I think you've all heard that before. And what is very important, that it takes 1/10 of a second to start determining some traits. The traits can be trustworthiness, positivity, and so on. So you have so little time to show who you are as a person, and take that time. And what you need to do to make a great first impression when you are greeting a recruiter and starting a job interview is, of course, the clean and neat appearance. So as I mentioned before, based on the company's culture, you can determine whether company needs a formal style or informal style, but cleanliness and neatness is a must, because you will need to make sure that you have a personal brand, and personal brand starts with appearance. The second thing that you can do is, of course, smile. So smiling shows that you feel comfortable, that you are positive, that you are ready to overcome the struggles with the interview. And of course, it is very important to speak clearly. So speaking clearly is very important, because probably your native language is not English, and probably all of the recruiters, as well as mine, native language is not English. So kind of through the interview, it gets hard to understand, even when the person is rushing or even when the person is very nervous. So make sure that you better speak slowly, but very clearly. Then we will know what you're saying, and we will have some of the additional information, and we will be able to read between the lines. And the third thing that you can do, and you should do, of course, is posture and initiative. Two very beautiful words, but what does it mean actually? So as we speak about the first impression, the posture and your gesticulation is the thing that shows how comfortable you feel and how professional your communication is. So communication skills are very important, and based on your gesticulation, you can see if the candidate is experienced in that field or not experienced. So if you want to, learn that, you should always see how you speak, how you move your hands, how you move your head in front of a mirror. It helps a lot actually to define what type of thing am I doing, especially when I'm nervous. So if you have a good posture and clear gesticulation, then your words will be understood easily, more easy than before. And of course, the initiative is the thing that you need to show during your first interview, especially. So initiate the talk, initiate the handshake, initiate the question, just so that show that you care, that you really care about the position. And the initiation process is what helps the recruiter to identify that you're really interested. The additional thing that I like to use and that I like to suggest for all the people that come from other countries to Lithuania is Hofstad Insights. So maybe some of you have used it, maybe some of you have seen it in the university, but this is a great free tool, and you can visit a page, choose your country, and compare your country's culture to Lithuania's culture. So it gives you some sort of an opportunity to visually see the main cultural differences and, of course, similarities, and prepare for them. So, for example, as you can see in my slide, the score of 65 in uncertainty avoidance show that Lithuanians have a built-in worry about the world around them, about some sort of situations, and of course they have reluctance to taking risks. So one of the things recruiters see is that managers rarely tend to hire people if they will be working from their home country. So they are more likely to ask to relocate to Vilnius and then hire a person instead of hiring it from their home country. And it actually very easy to explain based on this Hofstad Insights. Lithuanians have a very high uncertainty avoidance, and we don't like to not know what's happening, and we rely on our employees and on our managers to know as much as possible. So I encourage you to go to the webpage. You can see it in the slide, and compare your country's culture to Lithuania's culture and see what are the main differences and how should I, ask questions, how I should answer questions in order to make those differences and similarities. Moving on, we have second stage of the recruiting process, and it is a interview. So during the interview, what you should do is actively listen. So the first step is to not be scared to initiate the small talk. So initiation, as I have told you before, is very important. So you should initiate the small talk because it relieves the tension very well. And as you know, all of the recruiters have different personalities. So each one of us is a person, and we have different personalities, recruiters as well. Some of the recruiters are introverts, some of them are extroverts. So some of them can be talkative and some could be very tacit. So if you see that there is a very uncomfortable silence, Don't be scared to initiate the small talk. Really, it's a very good way to show that your communication skills are developed and that you are not actually afraid. And as I mentioned before, it relieves the tension, not only for the recruiter, but for you as well. And when the tension is relieved, more logical, more rational answers will come to your mind. The second step is to know the type of questions that are going to come up. So you could ask, of course, me, how do I know what type of questions are going to come up? Every recruiter has a separate way of conducting an interview, but that's not actually true, because there are 5 types of interview questions. They are known all over the world and they are used all over the world. But what can you do? You can just Google types of interview questions and you will know what are the goals for each type. So you will know that, for example, some of the recruiters give you a scenario, and the goal is to check not what you come up with, but how you manage in the stressful situations. So you have an unknown scenario, as well as how you clear your thoughts and think about only one thing. That's just an example of the one type of question, but it would be much easier for you if you Google what are the types of questions and you see what are the goals for each of the type. It will be much easier for you to know what sort of outcome recruiter expects from you. The third step would be to insert the questions you've written down during interviews. So as we know, during interview, we are very nervous, and sometimes it happens that we have a lot of questions and a lot of things to say, but we are very shy. We are shy, we are stressed, and those questions, they are left unanswered, or maybe we think that we will ask them later. However, since you've already prepared, since you've spent your time to writing down these questions, don't get shy and always ask them, because as I said, not only the analysis of the job description, but also the questions and how they are formulated shows a recruiter how well are you prepared and how deeply and hard you want the position. Looking to the fourth step is to reflect on the recruiter's thoughts and show that you hear and understand. So what I mean is that active listening technique, and you probably heard it before, because active listening is a very good skill in 21st century, because we have a lot of information noise and it's very hard to concentrate on the one thing and not to only hear, but to understand as well. So what you need to do when the recruiter is speaking, or when the manager, hiring manager is speaking, not to only nod your head and say yes, but to stop and answer some questions or repeat something they said, and to show that you understand what they're saying. As I said, is a very, very required skill in some of the analytics positions. So use that wisely and show that you have it not only on the paper, but in the real life as well. The first step is you should not forget that you are here to sell yourself. So basically, what I mean is your competence, your knowledge, your experience is a very valued asset, and that asset would definitely add to company success. So what you can do if you are not a great seller, for example, as me, you can always try and find some storytelling techniques. There are a lot of techniques in YouTube, in TED Talks that you can find, look through, and pick up some of the tips. So basically, selling is a storytelling, and without the story, the recruiter will not see you as a whole person, as a whole potential employee. So pick one of my personal favorites in the TED Talks. I will share with you it later, and see how the story should be told in order to be effective and in order for the recruiter to pick you. And the last, once again, is don't lie, and why it is important in this step in the interview. Because most of the recruiters actually have background in psychology, or they actually have experienced many various situations with the candidates, with different candidates. So for them, it's quite easy to spot a lie, spot a dishonesty, know that you are not telling the truth. So if you're hired based on the lie, I mean, doesn't it mean that you won't be able to be yourself most of the time? And I don't think that each one of us want to be dishonest to ourselves and dishonest to the potential employer. So in order to not lie, better avoid the question or say that you are not able to answer it right now. But don't start on the wrong foot as well, once again, and don't start your career with a lie. And oh, I'm so sorry. And the second step and the last step, my personal opinion, is don't act surprised or humble when the question about the salary comes up. So I saw that some of you had this question about salary and salary determination. So everyone knows, let's get that clear, that you have a price, that your experience, I should say, have a price. So you shouldn't be afraid to say it, because we work on this product on ourselves for our whole lives, and it is very important to us. So it means it has a price, and the price can be however you determine it. So one of my tips and tricks that I would like to say for the people that come to Lithuania is that in the job ad in the Lithuania, it is compulsory to have salary. There is a rule, national rule that you need to follow. So if you do not see salary in the job ad, in the job that is based in Lithuania, it means probably that the employer is not very honest and is not following a labor code. So keep that in mind. But if in the job ad there is indicated one specific salary, just know that it shows company's purchasing ability. So that's what they're willing to pay, not more. For your experience. Of course, they can pay less based on your experience and your, on your asking, basically. But if in the job ad, there is a salary range, and I mean from some salary to some salary, you need to know that your place in the range will depend on your experience and the interview impression. So basically, we have a wide range of the salary, and how you show yourself during interview, how much of the information you give, and how much you show your skills depends and has an effect on how much of the salary you are going to get. So basically, before interview, you should rationally evaluate yourself as a candidate and see in which part of that salary range you feel comfortable. Meaning that you need to see your costs, you need to see your expenses, and you need to say to yourself, okay, I cannot get less than some amount, because if you will be suggested less, probably, for example, you will not be able to live as a young person, and you will need to search for additional jobs. So keep that in mind. This is a very set of the main information, but in Lithuania, we have also an additional tool that I think can help you. So you can screenshot this, you can copy this, and you can use it to determine the potential salary of yours. So what the system does and has. So basically, in the system, you can choose a specific position and see the salary range of the position. So for example, I have added a screenshot for you to better understand what I mean. And I've searched for the project coordinator salary range. And I see at the end of a slide that the project coordinator in the administration field salary range is from and to. And that's a real information. That's a real information from Lithuania. However, know that the salaries are gathered by doing surveys. So it's not statistical data from the government. Employees are being asked around how much do they earn and which positions they are. And that's how you see all of this information. So don't use it blindly because, as you know, not all of the information is here, but it's a very good tool to have some sort of a guidelines, what ranges could be and should be based on the experience and based on, your skills in Lithuania. And also keep in mind that all of these salaries are from the whole Lithuania, not only from Vilnius. So some of them can look low, but it's only because in other cities, especially smaller cities, we have lower salary ranges than in Lithuania. So moving on, the third and the last step of the negotiating or of the recruiting is the moment after. So what you should do after the interview is definitely act on it. And I know that sometimes it's hard because you like to stay humble or you're very shy, but even the small act can show your additional interest and can push the manager and the recruiter come to a understanding that you are the right candidate for the company. So the first thing is if you have any questions that come up after the interview, you can always call or you can write an email. An email is actually a better way because it is easier to understand when the words are in the email white on black. So I know that I've told you many times this today, but what is going on during the interview in our head, right? So there are a lot of thoughts, there are a lot of things, a lot of new information, a lot of questions. So we definitely will forget some of the important questions or some of the important things. What you can do after is to write all of that down and to send it to recruiter or recruiter and the manager so that they will have all of the information and they would be able to answer some of the questions which can impact your decision to join or not to join the company. The second step would be to, don't be afraid to show your happiness, to show your excitement, to show your passion for the decision if you're invited to join the company. So one of the greatest things for the manager and for the recruiter is to hear through the phone that the person is cheering, that the person is laughing after the job proposal. So it definitely confirms that you really wanted this job, that you are very happy to join the company and that they made a right decision. So don't be afraid to show emotions. Yes, maybe in previous times in Lithuania, the emotions were a bit subtle in the workspace, but currently it is definitely changed and you can be yourself and you can show your passion if you feel it. The third step would be to, of course, thank for the opportunity if you are not invited to join. So I would like to say that in about 8 times out of 10, the first choice of the candidate is the incorrect choice. And this is the world statistics. However, I do not speak for Vilnius or for Lithuania, but in the world, about 8 out of 10 people are hired incorrectly. And by incorrectly, I mean they're not suitable for the position, for the company. So you still have some potential and you still have some availability. So let a recruiter know that if the place opens up, you would be more than happy to jump in. So it shows recruiter that you really like the position, that you really wanted to join. And if that first candidate that they chose is actually not the right one, they will call you and they will let you know that you can come by and you can try the position for yourself. The fourth step is in the both scenarios to ask for the feedback and analyze the situation. So basically, even if you get the positive answer or the negative answer, you need to know what made them to make this decision. So what are your flaws? What are your pros? And based on that, you will be able to get more experience in the interview process. You will know what to sell more, what to hide a bit more, and then you will be a more successful candidate for your future career paths. And of course, you should never feel discouraged due to unsuccess. So recruitment process actually includes many variables, and some of these variables don't even have a power to influence. Sometimes the recruiters doesn't have a power to influence this variable, sometimes you don't have a power, and it means that there are a lot of things that make your decision. So maybe the manager decided to hire something from the inside of the company and they have a priority to that. Maybe manager decided not to hire at all, and it doesn't mean that you are unsuccessful or unsuitable candidate. Just the situation just changed, and based on that, you should not feel discouraged and you should not stop looking for your perfect job. And I mean that, and I think that the fact that you have already registered and joined to listen this webinar that I am talking in, it shows that you are kind of a great material and that you should be a great employee, and you just need to find your own place right now. And the last and very personal thing that me and Yanan discussed is that you should not be afraid to reject an offer. So even though it looks like right now that you really need a job, that you will go to any position that you will get an offer to, you should always stop and think, is it really me? Do I really need this ASAP? Or can I wait for a week, for a month, and to find something that I'm really passionate about? So my other suggestion and other tips are about how to evaluate should you accept or not accept the job offer. So basically, when you have received the job offer, you should analyze several things. Go ahead and analyze company stability. How much of the profit you have? Is it stable? Is the company expanding? Is it shrinking? Because it's very important, and it can mean that you, for example, will not be needed in a year or two if the company is very shrinking and in a very bad financial situation. Of course, you need to check your future manager. So of course, you will check the connection during the interview, but you can see their work experience in the LinkedIn. You can see if your values match. And it is very important because you will work with your manager day to day. Of course, you need to analyze the financial proposal. And by financial proposal, I mean the salary that you are suggested. So basically, see if the suggested salary covers your main expenses, because as I mentioned before, the job should not be accepted just because it's a job. It should cover your expenses, and it should cover the price of your product. And I mean the product, your CV, your experience, and your competence. And what is very important in this current situation, in these past several years, is the work-life balance that the companies create. So all of the companies, I guarantee, will say that, yeah, of course, you can have work-life balance. But some of them encourage people to work more, work a lot, work on the weekends, work 20 hours per day, because they're very passionate in the product. Probably they're a small startup and want, to go big. And some of the companies are very settled, especially if they're in some sort of operations. They have very strict time schedule, and that's only when you work. So you should evaluate which type of the working hours culture or work-life balance is suitable for you right now, because it can be suitable for you right now, but after 5 or 10 years, you will want a better work-life balance, and that's okay. And that's when you will be able to change your job position. And the second thing is that you should evaluate some of the personal things. So first thing is to evaluate how did I feel when I received the job offer? Did I felt enthusiastic? Did I feel some sort of passion? Did my eyes just popped up and I was extremely happy and could not speak? What were the feelings, the emotions that you felt when you received the news? Because if you had no emotions and you are not very happy, very excited, well, probably then you are overtired or that job is just not for you and you do not feel it by your heart. And that is a very important thing, especially when settling into the new country. The other thing is the values. So as I mentioned before interview, you should be a detective. But we are being detectives to many companies because we definitely apply to many of them. So when you receive a job offer, go back and see what are the main values that the company translates and see if they are compatible with yours, if you agree, because if you do not, believe me, it will be very hard for you to work in that company, even though for a year or half a year, we can close our eyes and just work. After a year or two, it gets very hard to work in the environment that does not go with your values. And last thing is to see the desired career path. And what I mean here is that when we come to the company and when we accept job offer, we choose some sort of position. So it is very important to know your career path. For example, it's only a temporary position and I will move to the other field later. And if you know that, then you know that you will not need many promotions. You're just here to gather some skills, some information, and go and search for another job later. But if you feel very strong in that field and if you want to try yourself and you feel that this position is what you really need in your career path, then evaluate and ask what are possible career opportunities in that same field. And I mean, is there any promotion? Is there many vertical movements? Because in a very small companies, for some time, there have been a fact and a stories that you are in the same position for 5, 10, 15 years, and that's totally fine. But if you have another ambition, then you need to evaluate. Definitely, you need to evaluate it. And we're coming to an end, to a very long end of my talk. So I would like to repeat once again and make sure that you understood what I had in mind, because there's a lot of information. But what I meant is that you need to go to these 3 steps. The first one is to be detective when preparing for the interview. The second one is to actively listen during the interview and of course learn to do that. And the third one is act on it. So if you receive offer, do not receive offer. If you have questions, just do something about it. So basically, as I told you, there are no secrets, and I believe most of you, if not all of you, already knew that. And these are just universal truths that all of us just needs to be reminded about. And you would be, I think, surprised how many times per year recruiters remind those things to the people. So it means it is important. And I hope my role today is a bit important as well during your career search path. And the last thing, I would like to encourage you to understand that your competence, your personality, and your willingness to do it is a very valued product. And when the purchase between you and the new employer is going to happen, depends only on how much your product is developed, so how good is your CV, and of course, how good you've learned to negotiate. So with all of those tips and tricks that I've told you today, I think you can learn to negotiate better, but it's a skill that needs to be learned, that needs to be sought for. And also, one more encouraging thing to say is that there are more positions in Lithuania than there are people that are willing to work. So keep that in mind and know that we have a shortage of the people that are willing to work in different positions. So use that and pick the positions and sell your CV and your product for the employer that you feel that are most suitable